Greenlandic is an Eskimo-Euro-Aleut language spoken by about 57,000 Greenlandic Inuit people in Greenland. It is closely related to the Inuit languages in Canada, such as Inuktitut. The main dialect, Kalaallisut or West Greenlandic, has been the official language of the Greenlandic Autonomous Territory since June 2009. This is a move by the Greenlandic government to strengthen the language in its competition with the colonial language, Danish. The second dialect is East Greenlandic. The Thule Inuit of Greenland, Inuktun or Polar Eskimo, is a recent arrival, and a dialect of Inuktitut. Greenlandic is a polysynthetic language that allows the creation of long words by stringing together roots and suffixes. Its morphosyntactic alignment is ergative, meaning that it treats the argument of an intransitive verb like the object of a transitive verb, but distinctly from the agent of a transitive verb. Nouns are inflected for one of the 8 cases and for possession. Verbs are inflected for one of the 8 moods and for the number and person of its subject and object. Both nouns and verbs have complex derivational morphology. Basic word order in transitive clauses is subjector-objector-verb. Subordination of clauses is done by the use of special subordinate moods. A so-called fourth-person category enables switch reference between main clauses and subordinate clauses with different subjects. Greenlandic is notable for its lack of a system of grammatical tense, as temporal relations are normally expressed through context, through the use of temporal particles such as yesterday, or now, or sometimes through the use of derivational suffixes or the combination of affixes with aspectual meanings with the semantic action start of different verbs. However, some linguists have suggested that Greenlandic does mark future tense obligatorily. Another question is whether the language has noun incorporation, or whether the processes that create complex predicates that include nominal roots are derivational in nature. When adopting new concepts or technologies, Greenlandic usually constructs new words made from Greenlandic roots, but modern Greenlandic has also taken many loans from Danish and English. The language has been written in the Latin script since Danish colonization began in the 1700s. The first orthography was developed by Samuel Kleinschmidt in 1851, but within 100 years already differed substantially from the spoken language because of a number of sound changes. An extensive orthographic reform undertaken in 1973 that made the script easier to learn resulted in a boost in Greenlandic literacy, which is now among the highest in the world. History. The Greenlandic language was brought to Greenland with the arrival of the Thule culture in the 1200s. It is unknown which languages were spoken by the earlier Saqqaq and Dorset cultures in Greenland. The first descriptions of Greenlandic date from the 1600s, and with the arrival of Danish missionaries in the early 1700s, and the beginning of Danish colonialism in Greenland, the compilation of dictionaries and description of grammar began. The missionary Polar Eskimo wrote the first Greenlandic dictionary in 1750, and the first grammar in 1760. From the Danish colonization in the 1700s to the beginning of Greenlandic Home Rule in 1979, Greenlandic experienced increasing pressure from the Danish language. In the 1950s, Denmark's linguistic policies were directed at replacing Greenlandic with Danish. Of primary significance was that post-primary education and official functions were conducted in Danish. From 1851 to 1973, Greenlandic was written in a complicated orthography devised by the missionary linguist Samuel Kleinschmidt. In 1973, a new orthography was introduced, intended to bring the written language closer to the spoken standard, which had changed considerably since Kleinschmidt's time. The reform was effective and in the years following it, Greenlandic literacy received a boost. Another development that strengthened the Greenlandic language has been the policy of Greenlandization of Greenlandic society, which began with the Home Rule Agreement of 1979. This policy has worked to reverse the former trend towards marginalization of the Greenlandic language by making it the official language of education. The fact that Greenlandic has become the only language used in primary schooling has meant that today monolingual Danish-speaking parents in Greenland are raising children bilingual in Danish and Greenlandic. Today Greenlandic has several dedicated news media, the Greenlandic National Radio, Kalaallisut Radio, which provides television and radio programming in Greenlandic. The newspaper Suomitsiak has been published since 1958, and in 2010 merged with the other newspaper Aleut, which was established already in 1861 to form a single large Greenlandic language publishing house. Before June 2009, Greenlandic shared its status as the official language in Greenland with Danish. Since then, Greenlandic has become the sole official language. This has made Greenlandic a unique example of an indigenous language of the Americas that is recognized by law as the only official language of a semi-independent country. Nevertheless, it is still considered to be in a vulnerable state by the UNESCO Red Book of Language Endangerment. The country has a 100% literacy rate. As the Western Greenlandic standard has become dominant, a UNESCO report has labeled the other dialects as endangered, and measures are now being considered to protect the Eastern Greenlandic dialect. Classification: Kalaallisut and the other Greenlandic dialects belong to the Eskimo-Aleut family and are closely related to the Inuit languages of Canada and Alaska. Illustration 1 shows the locations of the different Eskimo languages, among them the three main dialects of Greenlandic. The most prominent Greenlandic dialect is West Greenlandic, which is the official language of Greenland. The name Kalaallisut is often used as a cover term for all of Greenlandic. The northern dialect, Inuktun, spoken in the vicinity of the city of Kalaallisut, is particularly closely related to Canadian Inuktitut. The eastern dialect, spoken in the vicinity of the towns of Amisalik and Scoresbysund, is the most innovative of the Greenlandic dialects, having assimilated consonant clusters and vowel sequences to a greater extent than West Greenlandic. Kalaallisut is further divided into four subdialects. One that is spoken around Upernavik has certain similarities to East Greenlandic, possibly because of a previous migration from eastern Greenland. A second dialect is spoken in the region of Imanak and the Disco Bay. The standard language is based on the central Kalaallisut dialect spoken in Sisimiut in the north, around Nuuk and as far south as Maniitsoq. Southern Kalaallisut is spoken around Narsaq and Kukutuk in the south. Table 1 shows the differences in the pronunciation of the word for humans in the three main dialects. It can be seen that Inuktun is the most conservative, maintaining the GH, which has been elided in Kalaallisut, and Tunermi-Isut is the most innovative, having further simplified the structure by eliding the. Michael Fortescue, a specialist in Eskimo-Aleut as well as in Chukutko-Kamkatkan, argues for a link between Uralic, Ukafur, Chukutko-Kamkatkan, and Eskimo-Aleut in language relations across Bering Strait. He calls this proposed grouping Uralo-Siberian. Phonology. Letters between slashes / indicate phonemic transcription, letters in square brackets indicate phonetic transcription, and letters in triangular brackets II copyright indicate standard Greenlandic orthography. Vowels equals. The Greenlandic three-vowel system, composed of, and, is typical for an Eskimo-Aleut language. Double vowels are analyzed as two morae, so they are phonologically a vowel sequence and not a long vowel. They are also written as two vowels in the orthography. The only diphthong in the language is, which occurs only at the ends of words. Before a uvular consonant, is realized allophonically as e or e, and is realized allophonically as o or e, and the two vowels are written e, o respectively. Becomes retracted to e in the same environment. Is rounded to y, before labial consonants. Is fronted to e permel between two coronal consonants. The allophonic lowering of and before uvular consonants is shown in the modern orthography by writing and as IO copyright and IO copyright respectively before uvulars IQAY copyright and IRA copyright. For example, husband pronounced e. She has a husband pronounced weka pq, and written IU kapakari copyright. House pronounced iau. He has a house pronounced iau kai pq, and written ilo kapakari copyright. Consonants equals. Greenlandic has consonants at 5 points of articulation: labial, alveolar, palatal, velar and uvular. It does not have phonemic voicing contrast, but rather distinguishes stops from fricatives. It distinguishes stops, fricatives, and nasals at the labial, alveolar, velar, and uvular points of articulation. The earlier palatal sibilant, E florin, has merged with S in all but a few dialects. The labiodental fricative, F, is only contrastive in loan words. The alveolar stop, T, is pronounced as an affricate, TS, before the high front vowel. Often Danish loan words are written with Danish letters for voiced stops. IBDG copyright, for example I Boageri copyright beer, and I Gaishnui copyright God, but in Greenlandic these stops are pronounced exactly as /ptk/, that is, pja and, qtes and I. Phonological constraints equals, the Kalaallisut syllable is simple, allowing syllables of v, c, where c is a consonant and v is a vowel and vv is a double vowel or word final. Native words may only begin with a vowel or /p, t, k, q, s, m, n/. They may end only in /p, t, k, q/ or rarely. Consonant clusters only occur over syllable boundaries and their pronunciation is subject to regressive assimilations that convert them into geminates. All non-nasal consonants in a cluster are voiceless. Prosody Greenlandic prosody does not include stress as an autonomous category. Instead, prosody is determined by tonal and durational parameters. Intonation is influenced by syllable weight. Heavy syllables are pronounced in a way that may be perceived as stress. Heavy syllables include syllables with long vowels and syllables before consonant clusters. The last syllable is stressed in words with fewer than 4 syllables and without long vowels or consonant clusters. The antepenultimate syllable is stressed in words with more than 4 syllables that are all light. In words with many heavy syllables, syllables with long vowels are considered heavier than syllables before a consonant cluster. Geminate consonants are pronounced long, almost exactly with a double duration of a single consonant. Intonation in indicative clauses usually rises on the antepenultimate syllable, falls on the penult and rises on the last syllable. Interrogative intonation rises on the penultimate and falls on the last syllable. Morphophonology Greenlandic phonology distinguishes itself phonologically from the other Inuit languages by a series of assimilations. Greenlandic phonology allows clusters, but it does not allow clusters of 2 different consonants unless the first one is. The first consonant in a cluster is always assimilated to the second one, resulting in a geminate consonant. Geminate is pronounced, ts, and written itse copyright. Geminate is pronounced, e. Geminate is pronounced, a microampere. Geminate is pronounced, ie. Geminate is pronounced, fey, and written ifffay copyright. Is also pronounced and written, f, after. These assimilations mean that one of the most recognizable Inuktitut words, igalu, is alu in Greenlandic, where the consonant cluster of Inuktitut is assimilated into an unvoiced lateral affricate. And the word Inuktitut itself, when translated into Kalaallisut, becomes Inuktitut. The Old Greenlandic diphthong has assimilated too. The consonant has disappeared when between and or. This means that affixes beginning with va or vi have forms without v, when suffixed to stems ending in. The vowel of modern Greenlandic is the result of an historic merger of the Proto-Eskimo Euro-Aleut vowels I and e. The fourth vowel was still present in Old Greenlandic as attested by Hans Egede. In modern West Greenlandic the difference between the 2 original vowels can only be discerned morphophonologically in certain environments. The vowel that was originally E has the variant, a, when preceding another vowel and sometimes disappears before certain suffixes. The degree to which the assimilation of consonant clusters has taken place is an important dialectal feature separating Polar Eskimo, Inuktun, which still allows some ungeminated consonant clusters, from West and East Greenlandic. East Greenlandic has shifted some geminate consonants, for example, e2, te. In Tunurmi-Isut, for example, the name of the town scores by Sunders Iptoko-Tuomite which will be Ilukotumut in Kalaallisut. Grammar. The morphology of Greenlandic is highly synthetic and exclusively suffixing, with the exception of a single highly limited and fossilized demonstrative prefix. it creates very long words by means of adding strings of suffixes to a stem. In principle there is no limit to the length of a Greenlandic word, but in practice words with more than half a dozen derivational suffixes are not so frequent, and the average number of morphemes per word is 3 to 5. The language employs around 318 inflectional suffixes and between 4 and 500 derivational ones. There are few compound words, but lots of derivations. The grammar employs a mixture of head and dependent marking. Both agent and patient are marked on the predicate and the possessor is marked on nouns, while dependent noun phrases inflect for case. The morphosyntactic alignment of Kalaallisut is ergative. The language distinguishes 4 persons, 2 numbers, 8 moods and 8 cases. Verbs carry a bipersonal inflection for subject and object. Possessive noun phrases inflect for their possessor, as well as for case. In this section the examples are written in Greenlandic standard orthography except that morpheme boundaries are indicated by a hyphen. Syntax equals, Greenlandic distinguishes 3 open word classes, nouns, verbs and particles. Verbs inflect for person and number of subject and object as well as for mood. Nouns inflect for possession and for case. Particles do not inflect. The verb is the only word required to build a sentence. Since verbs inflect for number and person of both subject and object, the verb is in fact a clause itself. Therefore, clauses where all participants are expressed as freestanding noun phrases are rather rare. The following examples show the possibilities of leaving out these verbal arguments: intransitive clause with no subject noun phrase, SNEPPOQ, he sleeps, sleep 3PIND, intransitive clause with subject noun phrase, Inuktitut the man sleeps, man. ABS sleep 3PIND, transitive clause with no overt arguments, Asavor, he loves him it, love 3P/3P, transitive clause with agent noun phrase, Inuktitut Asavor the man loves him it, man yarg love 3P/3P, transitive clause with patient noun phrase, Unak Asavor, he loves the woman, woman. ABS love 3P/3P. Morphosyntactic alignment. The Greenlandic language uses case to express grammatical relations between participants in a sentence. Nouns are inflected with one of the 2 core cases or one of the 6 oblique cases. Greenlandic is an ergative language. This means that, instead of treating the grammatical relations as in most European languages where grammatical subjects are marked with nominative case and objects with accusative, the grammatical roles are defined differently. In Greenlandic the ergative case is used for agents of transitive verbs and for possessors. Absolutive case is used for patients of transitive verbs and subjects of intransitive verbs. Research into Greenlandic as used by the younger generation has shown that the use of ergative alignment in Kalaallisut may be becoming obsolete, converting the language into a nominative via Euro-accusative language. Intransitive, anda SNEPPOQ anda sleeps, anda ABS sleep 3PIND, transitive with agent and object, anda Inuktitut anda Caesar bear, anda ERG bear ABS C3P/3P. Word order. Intransitive clauses where both object and subject are expressed as free noun phrases. Basic, pragmatically neutral word order is AOXV/SXV, where X is a noun phrase in one of the oblique cases. This order is fairly free, though. Topical noun phrases occur at the beginning of a clause whereas new or emphasized information generally come last. This is usually the verb, but it can also be a focal subject or object as well. In spoken language also afterthought material or clarifications may follow the verb, usually in a lowered pitch. On the other hand, the noun phrase is characterized by rigid order where the head of the phrase precedes any modifiers and the possessor precedes the possessum. In copular clauses the order is usually subject-copular complement. Andap tu jayuk baziera anda bought the sweater, and a sweater bought, AOV, an attribute appears after its head noun. Andap tu jayuk tung gujatuk baziera anda bought the blue sweater, and a sweater blue bought, AOXV, an attribute of an incorporated noun appears after the verb, anda sanaswavak piko risak anda is a skilled carpenter, and a carpenter is skilled, SVAPP. Coordination and subordination. Syntactic coordination and subordination is done by combining predicates in the superordinate moods with predicates in the subordinate moods. The contemperative has both coordinative and subordinative functions depending on context. The relative order of the main clause and its coordinate or subordinate clauses is relatively free, and mostly subject to pragmatic concerns. Obviation and switch reference. The Greenlandic pronominal system includes a distinction known as obviation or switch reference. There is a special so-called fourth person used to denote a third-person subject of a subordinate verb or the possessor of a noun that is coreferent with the third-person subject of the matrix clause. Below are examples of the difference between third and fourth person. Inuktitut or he saw his house, house 3POSSC 3P/3P, Inuktitut or he saw his own house, house 4POSSC 3P/3P, Aleut KKIGALA said I had hit him, say 3P hit I/3P, Aleut KKINILA said I had hit him, say 3P hit I/4P, Eva Isa Unisni saw Q, when Eva comes in she'll sleep, Eva come in. -4P sleep expect 3P, Eva Isa Patsni saw Q when Eva comes in I'll sleep. Eva come in 3P sleep expect 3P. Indefiniteness construction. There is no category of definiteness in Greenlandic, so the information whether participants are already known to the listener or new in the discourse is encoded by other means. According to some authors, morphology related to transitivity such as the use of the construction sometimes called antipassive or intransitive object conveys such meaning, along with strategies of noun incorporation of non-topical noun phrases. This view, however, is controversial. Active. Peter Bafktq or Peter saw the whale, Peter erg whale see, antipassive intransitive object, Peter Karfirmic takvut Peter saw whale, Peter abs whale instrc. Verbs equals. The morphology of Greenlandic verbs is enormously complex. The two main processes are inflection and derivation. Inflectional morphology includes the processes of obligatory inflection for mood, person, and voice. Derivational morphology modifies the meaning of verbs in a way similar to that expressed by adverbs in English. Derivational suffixes of this kind number in the hundreds. Many of these suffixes are so semantically salient that they are often referred to as postbases rather than suffixes, particularly in the American tradition of Eskimo grammar. Such semantically heavy suffixes may express concepts such as to have, to be, to say, or to think. The Greenlandic verb word consists of a root plus derivational suffixes postbases plus inflectional suffixes. Tense and aspect is marked by optional suffixes that appear between the derivational and inflectional suffixes. Inflection. Greenlandic verbs inflect for agreement with agent and patient, for mood and for voice. There are 8 moods, of which 4 are used in independent clauses and 4 in subordinate clauses. The 4 independent moods are, indicative, interrogative, imperative, optative. The 4 dependent moods are causative, conditional, contemperative, and participial. Verbal roots can take transitive, intransitive or negative inflections, so that all 8 mood suffixes have these 3 forms. The inflectional system is further complicated by the fact that transitive suffixes encode both agent and patient in a single morpheme, requiring up to 48 different suffixes to cover all possible combinations of agent and patient for each of the 8 transitive paradigms. As some moods do not have forms for all persons, the total number of verbal inflectional suffixes is about 318. Indicative and interrogative moods equals. The indicative mood is used in all independent expository clauses. The interrogative mood is used for posing questions. Questions with the question particle emak maybe cannot use the interrogative mood. Napasima vit? Are you sick? Bisikuinta, namik, napasima nngila ngar. No, I am not sick, no, bisikenegeind. Table 5 shows the intransitive indicative inflection for patient person and number of the verb nere to eat in the indicative and interrogative moods. The indicative and the interrogative mood each have a transitive and an intransitive inflection, but here only the intransitive inflection is given. Interestingly, consonant gradation like that in Finnish appears to show up in the verb conjugation. Table 6 showed the transitive indicative inflection for patient person and number of the verb asa to love. Equals imperative and optative moods equals, the imperative mood is used to issue orders. It is always combined with a second person. The optative is used to express wishes or exhortations and is never used with a second person. There is a negative imperative form used to issue prohibitions. Both optative and imperative have transitive and intransitive paradigms. There are two transitive positive imperative paradigms, a standard one, and one that is considered rude and is usually used to address children. Snigit. Sleep. Sleep imp, snilanga let me sleep. Sleep 1p. Opt, snennak. Don't sleep. Sleep negimp. Equals conditional mood equals, the conditional mood is used to construct subordinate clauses with the meaning if, or, when, sekna pat eva anai saw q if the sun shines, eva will go out, sunshine cond eva go out expect /3p. Equals causative mood equals, the causative mood is used to construct subordinate clauses with the meaning, because, or since, or, when. It is also sometimes used with the meaning of that. The causative is also used in main clauses to imply some underlying cause. Kasugami in a pok he went to bed because he was tired, be tired cau/3p go to bed 3p, matter tto or armor I've eaten blubber, blubber eat caui. Anai guta korma salvateriania qar mat if you go out, remember that there are foxes, go out cond you remember fight imp foxes caus. Equals contemperative mood equals, the contemperative mood is used to construct subordinate clauses with the meaning of simultaneity. It is only used if the subject of the subordinate clause and of the main clause are identical. If they differ, the participial mood or causative mood are used. The contemperative can also be used to form complement clauses for verbs of speaking or thinking. Kasulunga anglapunga being tired, I went home, be tired cont I go home I, 98 iniquuko qaluni tokvok being 98 years old, he she died /he she was 98 when he died, 98 instrpl have cont /3p die 3p, Eva okapok kami at Kalaallisut Eva said she had paid for the boots. Eva say 3p boot pl pay cont /3p. Equals participial mood equals, the participial mood is used to construct a subordinate clause describing its subject in the state of carrying out an activity. It is used when the matrix clause and the subordinate clause have different subjects. It is often used in appositional phrases such as relative clauses. Atua tok tiku ara I saw her read I saw that she read. Read part /3pci/3p, na uppung 8 sa sok I hope he is coming I hope he'll come, hope I come expect part /3p. Derivation, verbal derivation is extremely productive, and Greenlandic employs many hundreds of derivational suffixes. Often a single verb will use more than one derivational suffix, resulting in very long words. Below are given some examples of how derivational suffixes can change the meaning of verbs. Katat be tired of, tiku katat para I am tired of seeing either, see tired of I/3p, la begin to be about to, neari la pugut we are about to eat begin we, lakit be proficient at, I nasu lakit pok she is good at singing, sing hab proficiently 3p, naya plans to wants to, ala naya pok he plans to travel plan 3p, Anglanaya ala or punga I was planning to go home plan though I, ngajapok almost, sneen gajapunga I had almost fallen asleep, sleep almost I, niku ngila. Has never, taku niku ngila ra I have never seen it, see never negi/3p, nitsor not anyway after all, tkin nitsor pok he hasn't arrived after all, arrive not after all 3p. Time reference and aspect. Greenlandic grammar has morphological devices to mark a distinction between, for example, recent and distant past, but the use of these is not obligatory, and they should therefore rather be understood as parts of Greenlandic's extensive derivational system than as a system of tense markers. Rather than by morphological marking, fixed temporal distance is expressed by temporal adverbials. Toko Inuktitut pok he died long ago, die long ago 3 pind, nur kam mapunga I ate recently, eat recently iind, ipasak piatak arpa pok yesterday Peter was running. Yesterday Peter abs run 3 pind, all other things being equal and in the absence of any explicit adverbials, the indicative mood will be interpreted as complete or incomplete depending on the verbal action sart. Piatak arpa pok Peter runs, Peter abs run 3 pind, piatak ainivok Peter was gone out, Peter abs go out 3 pind, but if a sentence containing an atelic verbal phrase is embedded within the context of a past time narrative, it would be interpreted as past. Greenlandic has several purely derivational devices of expressing meaning related to aspect and action sart, for example zar expressing habituality, and sar expressing stop to. Next to these, there are at least two major perfect markers, sima and nikyu. Sima can occur in several positions with obviously different function. Rightmost position indicates evidential meaning, but this can be determined only if a number of suffixes are present. Tki, t, nikyu sima vog apparently, she had arrived, arrive niku usima 3 pint, with atelic verbs. There is a regular contrast between indirective evidentiality marked by sima and witnessed evidentiality marked by nikyu. Due to its evidential meaning, the combination of first person and sima sometimes is marked, kia sima vog he cried, cry sima 3 pind, kia nikyu vog he cried, cry niku 3 pind, in the written language and more recently also in the spoken language especially of younger speakers. Sima and nikyu can be used together with adverbials referring to a particular time in the past. That is, they might arguably mark time reference, but not yet systematically. Just as Greenlandic does not systematically mark past tense, the language also does not have a future tense. Rather, it employs three different strategies to express future meaning, suffixes denoting cognitive states that show an attitude about prospective actions. For example ilmaga ara Isaac mana Dudley kajana tor cffigi salagu I expect to get some fun out of Dudley this summer. Expect IIND summer this Dudley be fun cn get from expect contemperative /3p. Incoative suffixes creating telic actions which can then be understood as already having begun by virtue of the indicative mood. For example agayuti la para I've started to bring him. Bring begin IIND. Moods that mark the speech act as a request or wish. For example kmiti nirukka let us feed the dogs, ok. Dog pl feed please we imp. While the status of the perfect markers as aspect is not very controversial, some scholars have claimed that Greenlandic has a basic temporal distinction between future and non-future. Especially, the suffix sa and handful of other suffixes have been claimed to be obligatory future markers. However, at least for literary Greenlandic, these suffixes have been shown to have other semantics that can be used to refer to the future via the strategies just described. Noun incorporation. There is also a debate in the linguistic literature whether Greenlandic has noun incorporation. This is because Greenlandic does not allow the kind of incorporation common in many languages in which a noun root can be incorporated into almost any verb to form a verb with a new meaning. On the other hand, Greenlandic does often form verbs that include noun roots. The question then becomes whether to analyze these verb formations as incorporation or as denominal derivation of verbs. Greenlandic has a number of morphemes that require a noun root as their host and which form complex predicates that correspond closely in meaning to what is often seen in languages that have canonical noun incorporation. Linguists who propose that Greenlandic does have incorporation argue that these morphemes are in fact verbal roots that must obligatorily incorporate nouns to form grammatical clauses. This argument is supported by the fact that many of the derivational morphemes that form denominal verbs work almost identically to canonical noun incorporation. They allow the formation of words with a semantic content corresponding to an entire English clause with verb, subject and object. Another argument is that the morphemes used to derive denominal verbs come from historical noun incorporating constructions that have become fossilized. Other linguists maintain that the morphemes in question are simply derivational morphemes that allow the formation of denominal verbs. This argument is supported by the fact that the morphemes cannot occur without being latched onto a nominal element. The examples below illustrate how Greenlandic forms complex predicates including nominal roots. Qimmeq dog plus qar have, qimmeqar pok she has a dog, ilu house plus law make, ilu law pok she builds a house, coffee plus or drink eat, kafi saw pok she drinks coffee, paisi seal plus nniar hunt, paisi nniar pok she hunts seal, aligark letter plus see receive, aligar see vog she has received a letter, anana mother plus a to be, anana vog she's a mother. Nouns are obligatorily inflected for case and number and optionally for number and person of possessor. Singular and plural are distinguished and 8 cases used: absolutive, ergative, instrumental, aleative, locative, ablative, prosecutive, and equative. Case and number are marked by a single suffix. Nouns can be derived from verbs or from other nouns by a number of suffixes. For example, atuic to read plus fic place becomes atuific school, and atuific plus tsilac something good becomes atuifi silac good school. The fact that the possessive agreement suffixes on nouns and the transitive agreement suffixes on verbs in a number of instances have similar or identical shapes has even resulted in the theory that Greenlandic has a distinction between transitive and intransitive nouns, parallel to the same distinction in the verbs. Pronouns. There are personal pronouns for first, second, and third person singular and plural. These pronouns are optional as subjects or objects, but only when the verbal inflection refers to such arguments. Personal pronouns are, however, necessary in the oblique case, ilin nut neri come or, thou or lead tell to threes indic. He told you to eat it. Case. The 2 grammatical core cases ergative and absolutive are used to express grammatical and syntactical roles of participant noun phrases. The oblique case expresses information related to movement and manner. Anguti neri vok the man eats, man abs eat 3p, angutip paisi neri vor the man eats the seal, man yard g seal abs eat 3p/3p. The instrumental case is versatile. It is used for the instrument with which an action is carried out, for oblique objects of intransitive verbs and for secondary objects of transitive verbs. Nano q savim me nick carpi vor he stabbed the bear with his knife, polar bear abs knife his own instr stab 3p/3p, kaffe meek tortar pok she usually drinks coffee instr drink usually 3p, Pietark savim mick tuni var I gave Peter a knife, Peter abs knife instr give I/3p. It is also used to express the meaning of give me, and for forming adverbs from nouns, imamic. Give me, water instr, Sivayu mixinit poki slept late instr sleep 3p. The aleative case describes movement towards something, illumut towards the house. It is also used with numerals and the question word kosit to express the time of the clock, and in the meaning amount per unit, kasinut. A euro pingasu nut. When. A euro at 3 o'clock, when all kilo mutavika and qar pocket costs 20 crowns per kilo, all 20 crown have 3p. The locative case describes spatial location, illumi in the house. The ablative case describes movement away from something or the source of something. Rasmusi mit Aligasi vog he got a letter from Rasmus abl receive letter 3p, Tuchu mit nasu corn from a reindeer abl horn. The prosecutive case describes movement through something as well as the medium of writing or a location on the body. It is also used to describe a group of people such as a family as belonging to the modified noun. Marchu kkut Isa poki entered through the door pros enter 3p, su kkut till up parlatit. Where did he hit you? Where pros hit 3pu, palorsi kkut the priest and his family, priest pros. The equative case describes similarity of manner or quality. It is also used for deriving language names from nouns denoting nationalities, that is like a person of X nationality, speaks, nak or sitad sulai zarpok he works as a doctor, Dr. EQU work HAB3P, Inuktitut Danish language, Dane EQU. Possession. In Greenlandic, possession is marked on the noun which agrees with the person in number of its possessor. The possessor is in the ergative case. There are different possessive paradigms for all of the different cases. Table 4 gives the possessive paradigm for the absolutive case of Aleut house. Below are given examples of the use of the possessive inflection, the use of the ergative case for possessors and the use of fourth-person possessors. Anda P. Aleut Anders house, Anda ERG house 3P POSS, Anda P. Inuktitut Anda sees his own house, Anda ERG house 4P POSSC 3P/3P, Anda P. Inuktitut Anda sees his house, Anda ERG house 3P POSSC 3P/3P. Vocabulary. Greenlandic vocabulary is mostly inherited from Proto-Eskimo Euro-Aleut, but it has also taken a large number of loans from other languages, especially from Danish. Early loans from Danish have often become acculturated to the Greenlandic phonological system, for example the Greenlandic word Palosi priest is a loan from the Danish prosody. But since Greenlandic has an enormous potential for the derivation of new words from existing roots, many modern concepts have Greenlandic names that have been invented rather than borrowed, for example Karasarsiak computer, which literally means artificial brain. This potential for complex derivations also means that Greenlandic vocabulary is built on very few roots which combined with affixes come to form large word families. For example, the root for tongue okaik is used to derive the following words: Okapok says, Aukorsak word, Okalupok speaks, Aukorsilarisok linguist, Okasilarisutat grammar, Okalatayaliotak author, Aukorsapiliupa harangues him, Okalokatiganic conversation, Aukartajanolupa speaks badly about him. Lexical differences between dialects are often considerable. This is due to the earlier cultural practice of imposing taboo on words which had served as names for a deceased person. Since people were often named after everyday objects, many of these have changed their names several times because of taboo rules, causing dialectal vocabulary to diverge further. Orthography. Greenlandic is written with the Latin script. The alphabet, AEFGHIJKLMNOPQRSTUV, to spell loan words from other languages, especially from Danish and English, the additional letters B, C, D, X, Y, Z, W, A and A are used. Greenlandic uses the symbols and A as quotation marks. From 1851 and until 1973 Greenlandic was written in the alphabet invented by Samuel Kleinschmidt. This alphabet employed the special character Kra which was replaced by Q in the 1973 reform. In the Kleinschmidt alphabet, long vowels and geminate consonants were indicated by means of diacritics on the vowels. For example, the name Kalaallisut was spelled Kalaallisut Nunasent. This scheme uses a circumflex accent to indicate a long vowel, an acute accent to indicate gemination of the following consonant, I, KK, U, KK and, finally, a tilde or a grave accent, depending on the author, indicates vowel length and gemination of the following consonant. The letters A and A, used only before O and Q, are now written Arek and Orik in Greenlandic. The spelling system of Nunatsiavut, spoken in Nunnatsiavut in northeastern Labrador, is derived from the Old Greenlandic system. Technically, the Kleinschmidt orthography focused upon morphology. The same derivational affix would be written in the same way in different contexts, despite its being pronounced differently in different contexts. The 1973 reform replaced this with a phonological system. Here, there was a clear link from written form to pronunciation, and the same suffix is now written differently in different contexts. The differences are due to phonological changes. It is therefore easy to go from the old orthography to the new, whereas going the other direction would require a full lexical analysis. Sample text Inuit Tamamikin Borpudnamanasanasu Sekal Utik Asagimilu Atakanasu Sekal Atilu Pizana Tiafekalitik. Silakusasimic Tarnilanalun Jisasianic Pila Shujorput, Eminalu Iliafiga Katigitaria Kraloput Ktangitagaitata Pikatigan Rupa Nursavani. All human beings are born free and equal in dignity and rights. They are endowed with reason and conscience and should act towards one another in a spirit of brotherhood. See also Inuit language, Inuit grammar, Inuit phonology. Notes. References. Cited literature. Further reading, Fortescue, M.D. From the Writings of the Greenlanders equals Kalaallisut Inuit. Fairbanks, Alaska University of Alaska Press. ISBN 0-912006-43-9. External links, Ocosillarific.